You love Christmas. I know you do. I love Christmas, and we all love winter until I'm ready for summer. But winter is right around the corner. October is done and over with, and we're starting to head into the winter months and the winter season rather than fall, which means it gets dark earlier, and it means that it's time for winter music. But there is no better time of the year to listen to music than winter. Winter is the perfect season for music. Music hits 10 times harder. It gets darker earlier. It's a lot of great time for late night music, which we obviously know is peak music. I've said it enough. Especially any drive throughout the winter, whether it's a long drive, a late night drive, when it's snowy and super cold, music for some reason hits. It hits, it resonates with the soul. We all know it. Winter's the best time for music. Come on. But with the winter season approaching, I have 10 albums that we are all going to be bumping throughout winter, me and you. Perfect winter albums. So we're going to start this off with a non-rap album, but just pure winter in every aspect. Kid A by Radiohead. This doesn't even require an explanation, does it? I'm sure you hear Kid A and it's like, yeah, absolutely. This is such a cold feeling album. This is such a late night album. This is the middle of the winter right here. This is peak. It's just the ultimate chilly, lonely, ambient album for the dark months of winter. I mean, it's melancholic. It's very atmospheric. It's experimental. I mean, the whole concept about this album is just searching for meaning and feeling disconnected from the world around you. So this entire album just fits perfect in every aspect. Production, lyrically, for the winter months. It's just the production on this album, man. It is so incredible. I feel like Radiohead perfectly matched the concept of this album with a super alienating feeling soundscape and production. This is ultimately the album to contemplate your future with and just your entire life. And I'm sure we're all contemplating our life throughout the dark months of winter, but this is perfect for the cold and darkness of the winter months. Kid A. Kid A every day of the week. For the next album, first off, Offline, I literally just said how this is one of the most perfect winter albums and it's not getting a full mention, so I have to talk about it because this is winter. Absolutely winter in every aspect. The only reason it's not on here is because I don't want two Peggy albums, and I'm about to throw up some Joe Chill World. And Joe Chill World feels like a faded memory from 2010, like a late winter night, super, super nostalgic. That's why I gotta have it on here, because I think there's a little bit of bias. I did discover this album in the winter months, and I had Montebello High School Prom and Neon Kitchen, blah, 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 on repeat throughout these late drives that it was like an hour. I was going to some place at some time in my life, and it was an hour drive. I was on the highway. It was snowy, super snowy, icy. My car was sliding. It was some rough drives, okay? I had this album on repeat. Also, when I worked at my last job, I worked outside cleaning cars and it was freezing. It was miserable. I'm not going to even hold back. That shit sucked. I would sit in a car, sitting like this, while the car turned on, waiting for it to heat up, contemplating why the hell I was working there, okay? So there's a little bit of bias because I listened to this album at night and in the middle of winter, basically. But even with that, this album is still pure winter. To anyone who listens to this album, it gives off a nostalgic vibe. It's very lo-fi and experimental. And like I said, it feels like a faded memory from a decade ago. It makes it feel like a dark, chilly winter album. And this album just feels like alienation. And that's what Peggy is rapping about throughout this whole album, kind of expressing his identity and a lot of stuff about winter. You'll hear me say it a lot in this video. Winter music for me has, if it has a hazy atmospheric vibe, late night vibe almost, I just resonate that with winter for some reason, especially the alienating feeling albums, looking at something like ATLiens by Outkast, when it feels like I'm kind of just floating away from reality. That's what winter feels like for me. That's just what it is. It's how it's always been. But the surreal soundscapes makes this one really fun album to listen to. It obviously, the hazy atmosphere and the lo-fi vibes it gives off. This is a cold, isolated album, perfect for winter months. And now for the next words I'm about to spam in this video, because this is just peak winter music. Reasonable Doubt by Jay-Z. Winter is boom bap. Boom bap East Coast style is so good for chilly winter days. And I think this is widely acknowledged that boom bap just has a cozy winter vibe to it. I literally bought Illmatic from my local record store, and when I did that, what does she say first? This is such a good album for the winter months. That boom bap sound, oh my gosh. You just read my thoughts. You literally just read my thoughts. But Reasonable Doubt, this is just such a rich Brooklyn album. This just feels like pure New York with the luxurious boom bap beats. You got DJ Premier production on here. And on top of that, Jay-Z just has this album filled, glowing with confidence and luxury. So this just feels like a late night New York album. It's perfect for chilly winter days. And again, like I said, East Coast and the boom bap beats, it's absolutely perfect for wintertime. And this one isn't as like luxurious feeling. It's more gritty, more hardcore with Big L's confident delivery. You have some horrorcore tracks on the album. And I'd say this album has even more of a cold winter atmosphere than even Reasonable Doubt. It just has this menacing atmosphere to it, obviously with Big L's dark lyricism. The production, again, there's horrorcore tracks on here sonically, lyrically. The jazz influence in some of these tracks are also amazing. So you're just getting one hell of an album anyway. But yeah, this album is just a cold winter walk type of album. And it just feels like the late nights of New York City. And I think Big L perfectly depicts the life in Harlem in the 90s. So like, this is one perfect winter album overall. Body High by Lucky is a beauty. Perfect winter album. It's Lucky's journey drifting deeper into drugs to cope with his pain. The production is some of the best cloud rap production in the genre. Such a rich, hazy atmosphere to this. It's such an amazing mixtape. One of my favorite rap mixtapes of all time. Incredibly atmospheric. The introspective lyrics also give this such an alienated winter vibe. It's like drifting into late night thoughts. I've always thought of this album that way. It literally feels like drifting into late night thoughts. This production is so surreal. Another one, bumped it like crazy when I first heard it, Late Night Winter. So I don't even think this one's near biased though, because this is just nothing but hazy, atmospheric, cloudy music. The Infamous by Mobb Deep, another 90s boom bap album, but The Infamous is one of the darkest and grittiest boom bap albums of not only the 90s, but literally of all time. This album feels very cold as well, similar to Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous, because Big L has a lot of hardcore lyrics, same with Prodigy and Havoc with Mobb Deep. This just is another one. It feels like a walk in the middle of the night when it's snowy, windy, kind of lonely feeling. And that ultimately comes down to Havoc's generational production and performance on this album sonically, because the soundscapes are some of the darkest, menacing production ever in rap. So many eerie samples, and it's just so cinematic. You have this tense vibe while listening to this from start to finish. And on top of that, Prodigy has some of the best performances in rap as well. Shook One's Part 2, Survival of the Fittest, Temperatures Rising, all the bleak street narratives, the storytelling. This just adds another dark aspect to it. It is one of the most perfect, all well-rounded, perfect winter albums for me. We're kind of just going deeper and deeper into some 90s boom bap stuff, but we're going to put a break to that and go a complete opposite direction. Slide by George Clinton. So not only are you experiencing pure, authentic heaven with this album, it is a winter classic. George Clinton, man. I feel like ever since I discovered George Clinton, I've had more clarity on life. I feel like I can see better. I can hear better. I feel like something came down from the heavens above and just blessed me. And it's called George Clinton's music. But this Vaporwave album is a classic in my life. It has some incredible production, incredible soundscapes. It's very psychedelic. It's got the dream pop influence and just gives off a snowy winter vibe. And then similar to Body High by Lucky, because not only are you getting an incredibly produced album, you're getting introspective lyrics and some heartfelt performances that just add on to that even more. George Clinton is ultimately just diving deep into his mind throughout this album, and the more you go on, you get some more emotional performances, a lot of stuff about heartbreak. Everything about this album just screams cold, snowy day for me, and I also discovered this one in the middle of winter, so... But I'm coming to these albums in different seasons of the year, and it's like, this hits harder throughout winter. This has more of a cold vibe to it. The Cold Vein by Cannibal Ox, I mean, just look at the cover. You can look at the cover, you can look at the title, and you don't even need to hear the album, and you're probably like, yeah, that's probably a winter album. If you haven't heard the album, though, this is what it sounds like. I don't know if that makes any logical sense, but it does, okay? If you've heard the album, you'll know what I mean. It sounds just like it looks. LP went nuts producing this album. You have some very futuristic production, but it also feels very icy, like a very icy, lonely walk through like an abandoned city, which would make sense because the entire concept of this album is where they're sort of wandering through the decaying and frozen cityscape, kind of depicting the duality between beauty and despair in the city life. So you're getting that concept on top of some icy, futuristic production from LP, very cold album. That is going to feel like a cold winter, windy day. Like, I want to listen to this album walking through like an abandoned city. Buildings are just, you know, shit, debris is hanging down. Windows are destroyed. Cold in the middle of the winter, dude. I think my life would change if I was able to walk through that and listen to The Cold Vein. Watching Movies with the Sound Off by Mac Miller. And when it comes to Mac's discography, this album has always been the most pure cold winter album for me. You're getting a lot of hazy, introspective production, and lyrically, because Mac Miller is essentially diving deep into his mind of struggles and depression, his struggle to deal with fame and mental health. And at the time this dropped, this was Mac's most introspective and atmospheric album. Obviously, he had Faces drop after that. He had Swimming. He had an entire style built around his mental health struggles. But before that, it was obviously the frat rap. And obviously, he had some like introspective tracks, something like Fight the Feeling off of Macadelic on some of the mixtapes. But watching movies with the sound off is when he ultimately made that his style. And you look at a song like Objects in the Mirror, fully diving into his struggles with drugs and just his struggle with mental health and depression. This was like the turning point of Mac's career. Listening to this album feels like an escape to reality. It feels very atmospheric, like I said. Some tracks are very isolating, giving off that vibe. Overall, just a very cold vibe to it. A great late night album as well. So on top of that, listening to this on a late winter night, you're probably gonna be taken to another galaxy. And then for the last album today, I want to end with the Winter Ultimate. We're going back to boom bap. It is Liquid Swords by GZA. RZA masterclass production-wise. I think a lot of the albums I chose here, you had some pretty all-time great performances sonically, looking at Havoc with The Infamous, LP with The Cold Vein, and this is just another example of that because RZA, just nuts. Some of these are the best produced tracks in rap, arguably. But also performance-wise and lyrically, this is a GZA masterclass. This is such a consistent album when it comes to top tier, S tier rapping. It's one of the best rap albums of all time, and this is such a pure middle of the winter type of album, thanks to the soundscapes RZA creates, honestly. It has some of the most cinematic beats in hip hop, and like I said, they feel very cold. When it comes to GZA's storytelling, to RZA's production, they create a world that feels like the dead of night in New York City. And what's so phenomenal about this album is every beat brings something special to it. For example, let's look at the layers to Cold World. First off, we have Stevie Wonder's sample in the chorus, which fit this song so perfect with the concept, and it adds some soulful, beautiful vocals to this song. You have that windy sample loop that plays in the background that just gives this a middle of the night winter vibe. It's like you're walking in a snowy winter day. You just hear the wind. It's just playing throughout that entire song. Makes it so cinematic, and the bass of the beat is haunting and cold like the rest of the album. Just so many incredible beats on this album. It's very hard to not get addicted to this album when you start listening to it throughout the winter months, but that will be it for this video. I appreciate all of y'all for watching and sticking around till the end, and drop down below what your favorite winter albums of all time are. Check out all the social media and check out some more of the content, and I'll see you on my next video.